Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Deep Dive as we're recording an addendum, a preface. It's not really a preface because the rest of the Deep Dive isn't about this, but the bottom line is we just finished recording the Deep Dive, and the moment we did, the Matty Beniers contract extension news dropped, so we are recording this and sticking it at the very beginning of the Deep Dive. We got a wonderful podcast for you all to listen to, but right now we're talking Matty Beniers. RJ, Matty Beniers has signed his extension. The Kraken have announced it. What are the details?
So the Kraken are about to announce it. So this is a report from Elliot Friedman. The announcement is not yet official.
Okay.
But Elliot Friedman says Seattle is working on getting an extension done with 2023 Calder Trophy winner Matty Beniers. Sounds like it's in the area of 7 years times $7 million AAV, probably around $50 million total. So that's the report from Elliot Friedman. The Kraken actually did just tweet some emojis suggesting that this is coming. So an official announcement is imminent. This is the news. Matty Beniers extension, 7 years. We'll see what the actual cap hit ends up being. We'll probably find this out in the middle of recording this, somewhere in the 7 million range. But that is huge news for the Kraken and honestly unexpected. We've talked quite a bit about a potential Matty Beniers extension and what that would come to. I think both of us were expecting something shorter term than this, in the 2 to 3 year range, a bridge deal. But it seems like the Kraken have chosen to go long term, and that's going to have some long term ramifications for the team.
Yeah, and in some ways I'm surprised, in some ways I'm not, right? I'm surprised in the sense that for a player that has had the ups and downs that Matty has had, a bridge deal just felt like the natural, obvious choice. It's the direction I would have gone. Yes, you might have to pay a little bit more on the back end of that if he maximizes his potential, but he's maybe given you enough reason to pause that you don't want to go ahead and fully commit to him at a large number the way that the Kraken seemingly have done. That being said, this whole offseason has been Ron Francis making moves of basically, I'm not worried about the future. I got to fix things now, and let's just get things settled now. With like the Chandler Stevenson signing for 7 years or Brandon Montour signing for 7 years. It's been very much an offseason of, no, we are going to have an identity for this roster. This is going to be the direction that we are going to full sail commit to. And Matty Beniers was always going to be a part of that. So then I guess the thinking is, why not just go ahead and give him the 7 years and lock him up? And you're already going all in on this roster. You might as well just finish the job.
Right. I mean, this is the core. For better or worse, this is the core of the team. You only get so many top 5 draft picks when you're getting the chance to build the team. I know the Kraken plan to be competitive from now going forward. That's certainly Ron Francis's plan. He doesn't want any more top 5 draft picks. If he gets more top 5 draft picks, he's probably not the one making them.
Yes.
So at this point, this is the core that you have. And a lot of teams have chosen, right? You have to either decide, are you going to commit to this core or are you not going to commit to the core? And Francis has chosen to commit here. And this is a higher risk, potentially higher reward type of move. We've seen other teams do this. The one that really comes to mind for me is Buffalo, where they've made this choice on just about every core player that they have, whether it's Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power, you name it, Matthias Samuelsson even. They've made that choice to, if they're our guy, we've drafted, developed them, we're going to commit to them early and hopefully lock in a lower number. And if they turn out to be really great, it's going to be a bargain. And if not, it's risky. You're on the hook. And I know you've been critical of that strategy in general in the past, but it's different in every situation for every team, for every player.
Yeah.
Does it make sense for Seattle here?
I mean, it does in some ways, right? Like I said, it matches the rest of the moves that Ron Francis has made. If you're Ron Francis, it makes sense for you. You could make an argument about whether or not it's in the best interest of the Seattle Kraken organization long term. I feel like the 7-year number, especially with the cap going up potentially, the cap should go up in 2 large increments twice over the lifespan of this 7-year deal. So by the back end of it, it shouldn't be that bad realistically. Like, it's not going to be that high a percentage of the cap for you realistically. So in that sense, I don't think it's that big a deal that they went ahead and did it. I thought maybe the addition of Berkeley Catton maybe then kind of makes you look at things a little bit differently. Like, is Matty in that 1-2 conversation, or is it now more of like a 2-3 conversation as far as center depth for Matty Beniers long term if Shane Wright hits and if Berkeley Catton hits offensive upside wise and stays at the center role? I thought maybe Berkeley Catton gives you a little bit more flexibility to go ahead and do the bridge deal with Matty, and then by the end of that bridge deal, both what Matty is and also what Berkeley Catton is for you, and it kind of gives you that ultimate flexibility there. But I do think just because, at some point you're going to have CBA negotiations going on, that should lead to some sort of cap increase. You're also going to have the national television right deal in, 4 years' time. That should also lead to another cap increase. $7 million for a guy, even if he is a middle six center for you, if that's what Matty kind of maxes out as from an offensive production standpoint, could be like 5% of the cap for you, in which case that's not too bad. That's very survivable, especially if he's a defensive expert the way Matty already is.
Right. And that's where I think the risk of this deal is more limited than maybe with some other contracts. I mean, we've talked about looking at a 7-year term at around this number for a center this offseason in the Chandler Stevenson deal. And I know we were both pretty down on that one. Right. But I think certainly if you compare the two and look at where the 7-year bet that you're making is, basically there's been a lot of, attempted reasoning and justification of like, okay, look, the price point, 6.25 is not that bad, even if he becomes kind of a second or third line center. And I think you can make a similar argument for Matty, but you have, I think, more of a leg to stand on because his defensive impacts are so good.
Yeah.
If he were to be a middle six center, he could be a shutdown guy in a way that, 35-year-old Stevenson just isn't going to be. Right. But there's that. Plus, in the salary structure, in the greater salary structure with the cap going up, it's probably, even if it doesn't really work out, it's probably a movable deal, especially for someone with the draft pedigree like Matty Beniers has. And also, I know you criticize me sometimes for being too in on aging curves, but you are getting prime years, at least according to aging curves. You're getting prime seasons. Yeah. This is not a guy who's over 30. He's 21, 22. You're getting the best years of a player's career, what they should be in this contract. And so I really think the risk is actually not as much as what some might say.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, this leads into one of my two questions for you about this contract. The term, 7 years. It is an extension. The Kraken could have pushed it to maybe 8. What do you think of the term of 7 years in relation to how many RFA years are going to get bought up by this deal, and where it kind of leaves Matty on the back end of it?
Right. So that is important to look at with any contract like this too, because now Matty Beniers is going to be a UFA. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this deal. He's currently 21 years old. So when this thing is over, he is going to be 28. 21 plus 7 is 28. Checking my math there is later in the episode, you'll see that I didn't do the best job with some math. So yeah, I mean, it only buys up. Does it buy 2 or 3 UFA years?
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out with him, because he is early November birthday. I don't know how that totally plays into all the rules. I've always been UFA a little confused. I was thinking 2 as well.
Right. So I think in a way that's good for Matty. He's getting to hit UFA at a really good age. And I think maybe that's a reason that he was willing to go long-term here, when maybe it's betting against yourself in one way, but it's betting on yourself in another way, that in 7 years time, you'll have established yourself as a top center and you'll be in position to really get paid. I think it puts the Kraken in a tough position, possibly 7 years from now, because as we're seeing with players like, say a Mitch Marner or Leon Draisaitl, those are kind of higher end guys. But even then, right, if they're a core piece and they're going to be a UFA, even like, let's say a Nikolai Ehlers or somebody for Winnipeg, it puts you in an awkward position as a team where you have to make sure to get something done. But I think the Kraken will cross that bridge when they come to it. You can only hope that he'll turn into the kind of player where it'll create a tough situation for you.
Right. I was going to say, and it gives the Kraken flexibility because, at that same point, you'll know definitively what Shane Wright is for your organization. You're going to know definitively what Berkeley Catton is. You're going to know all of your other prospects at that point as well, right? A Chalet, Furcus, whoever. You're going to know who all of these individuals are for your team, what the long-term outlook is, which ones you view as the lifelong Kraken, which ones you think you can maybe survive. And so, yeah, you're going to have to make that call on Matty. But if Matty ends up being the guy and maybe Shane Wright and Berkeley Catton don't, then you can just commit to Matty at that point. if Matty at that point, just because Catton and Shane Wright are playing so well, is more your 3C, well, you don't have to break the bank for him, right? And so it gives the Kraken flexibility on the back end of that deal. But I want to talk about flexibility now, RJ, because as far as I can tell, this puts the Kraken over the cap now for this upcoming season. With a full roster, he makes a full roster. It gives them 14 forwards, 7 defensemen, 2 goaltenders, but it pushes them over the cap by like $1.5 million-ish. And I'm wondering, do we think then that maybe we do see like a Yanni Gourde or a Brandon Tanev move earlier rather than, say, come trade deadline time later this season?
Yeah, I think certainly. Look, they're going to have to move somebody. That's the next step on this contract, right? They're over the cap. They can't get under the cap by just, reducing the roster realistically, right? You're going to want some flexibility to play with there. Somebody has to go. And so I think that's the next step here in the coming days, maybe weeks, but maybe even coming days. Teams are starting to kind of wake up and do more of their business now. I think you're going to have to see somebody moved on off the roster. As for who it is, Brandon Tanev has to be the favorite, right?
Yeah.
His $3.5 million cap hit, probably somebody who's going to be just competing for fourth line minutes anyway. I think both of us were a little surprised he wasn't moved to this
already
point.
Yeah.
But now I think you have to go ahead and do that.
Yeah. I think that's the most obvious one. I can't imagine making a move on D. I feel like the D is very solid and set the way it is. I feel like this has to be a move out at forward. Brandon Tanev makes the most sense. I feel like there's other teams that could better utilize him than the Kraken at this point, and I'm sure a change of scenery for him wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either. So I'm with you. I feel like Brandon Tanev, it just makes the most sense because you can move him, you can, you free up the cap space, you can then just plug in a league minimum or whatever kind of guy to be then, one of your healthy scratches, and you're all set. So I'm with you. I feel like that's the way to go. We'll see when we see that move. Otherwise, things, fairly set for the year now that Matty's officially done. Like the Kraken can just about get ready for training camp and preseason. There's no other business that needs to be done once they move out whatever money they move out.
Right. I mean, this was the last big thing they needed to get done this off season. And I think looking back at it too, we probably be happy generally if we knew that it was a long-term deal. We were both kind of rooting for that if he was willing to take it.
Yeah.
And also the announcement has come out officially from the team. So it is a 7-year deal at 7.14. So a little bit higher than projected. 7.14. I'm going to do the math here real quick. 7.14 times 7 and see if that, okay, 49.98 million. So just under the 50 million mark. I was wondering if that, although maybe it's 7.14 or whatever would get it to 50. It might just be 7 years, 50 million total. That would make sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we're looking at, a little bit higher than the 7 million even that we had talked about. I think everything we mentioned, I don't think that changes.
It doesn't change anything
dramatically. But yeah, the team has their official through PR, their press release quote from Ron Francis here. Matty has been a core part of our team since making his NHL debut, not only on the ice, but his commitment to our community and our fans. Signing Matty to a new contract was a top priority for our offseason. We're excited to have it done. We're looking forward to see Matty take the next steps as a player and watching him contribute to many more memorable moments for our franchise. Okay. Nothing really new information wise there. I figured I'd give it a read anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's official. 7 times 7.14 for Matty Beniers.
All right. Matty Beniers is going to be a Kraken for a good long while. And I think, those are all my immediate reactions. I feel like we'll have a lot of talk about in the lead up to the season about this deal. But I feel like for now, it's a good summary of all the stuff I could think of off the top of my head.
For sure. I mean, we're just getting the chance to digest this all right now. But yeah, my initial thoughts, if we just kind of want to bullet point it, higher risk, higher reward, but I think the risk is lower than some might say. I think the potential reward is worth it. I like this general philosophy of if you have a top 5 draft pick who's developing at least okay, sign him long-term, make that bet on the player that you drafted. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I don't either. I know I was pushing for the bridge deal. I think, like I said earlier, the fact that you're going to realistically expect 2 cap raises over the lifespan of this deal makes it a pretty good bet to lock it down. You're getting some UFA years as well. You got to pay for those. I understand that. I think that's part of this and why the number is where it's at. Otherwise, you'd see like the Byfield number, right? Where it's maybe low sixes instead of low sevens. So I think that all makes sense. I think it's going to be a good deal for both for team and player, right? It allows Matty to have some consistency, and we got to see him under a new coach too. Like, that's going to be a big part of this upcoming season for him. So I like this all the way around the board, and I think now we can start the podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast. RJ, it should be a big one, should be a long one, as today is the day in this month of August, our way too early month, that we are going to go through all 82 regular season games for the Seattle Kraken, picking win, loss, OTL. We're going to predict the entire season for the Kraken. You don't even need to bother following the team come October, because we're just going to tell you what's going to happen here today on this podcast.
Yep, I feel like this is the ultimate representation of our way too early series that we do in August, going through every single game. I mean, it feels like kind of what is the point, but going through every single game on vibes alone, predicting them all, and at the end of the year we can see how we did.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one for sure. Let's go ahead and thank Queen Anne Beer Hall for sponsoring the podcast like they do each and every week. So big shout out to them. I know we've been talking about it, but like preseason is just about over for the NFL. We're really right around the corner from that. Doing this podcast, RJ, I'm looking and I'm like, wow, preseason for the NHL is right around the corner. Basketball is going to be starting soon. I know we talked about this last week, but we're just another week closer to it all happening. Got to go check out Queen Anne Beer Hall, everybody, to watch all of your sports there. Also, we do have like one little bit of news to talk about here, and that is that yesterday, RJ, on Twitter, kind of going around a little bit, but it looks like maybe, potentially, hopefully, that the Kraken Skills Showcase could be coming back.
That's right. So we got a tiny hint that maybe it's coming back, and it was via Nicole Cutmore, member of the ECH community, who eagle-eyed caught this on Ticketmaster through the season ticket sign up link, where there was a ticket link where you could get tickets for it says 2024 Seattle Kraken Super Skills Challenge. I remember it was Showcase previously.
Yeah.
But anyway, Showcase Challenge, whatever. So it was on there, and it was scheduled for Saturday, November 9th, 2024 at 1 p.m. Now, I went to try and find it on Ticketmaster. I couldn't find it. Other people went to look for it. Must have gotten taken down really quick. So again, we are not reporting this as something that's for sure going to happen. We don't know. This is all that we're going off of. But if true, if this is something that's being planned by the team and the skills showcase is back, fantastic news. That would be amazing. We love the Super Skills Showcase Challenge, whatever you want to call it. It was a great event for Kraken fans, and a super accessible event too. I think that was the most important thing, where everybody had a really fun time. And if it's happening, I'm really looking forward to it, especially so early in the season too, because previously it had been around the halfway mark of the year. I think having it earlier too will help with kind of the enthusiasm from the players and everything. I remember last time it was right after the end of a long road trip. Yeah. And the players enjoyed it. They had a good time, but everyone was exhausted. You could just tell everyone was tired. This one, as we get into the schedule and see, would be around the start of a long homestand, and it would be early in the season. I think that would just lead to a better atmosphere for everything. So hopefully this is true. Hopefully it's happening. If it is, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I want it to happen because it'll be the first one I'll be up there for, and I could join and go, and I think that would be awesome. So I'm certainly hoping that it ends up being real, and that this is something that we can all enjoy and get to see come back for the Seattle Kraken, because it's just such a cool, fun idea that the team kind of hosts that. So there's that for news. Now, before we get into the projecting and predicting this upcoming season, RJ, got to talk about last year when we did this. And wonderful member of the community, Chuck, went back and tallied all the results from last year and what the records actually was, and actually did like a point system for how we had done this last year, RJ, where we got different increments of points for guessing things correctly, or for, obviously wins, loss, or OTLs, and then also like a lesser amount of points if we guess like a win or loss and it ended up being an overtime win or loss, and stuff like that, and then even just 1 point for getting that the game was going to go into overtime but not guessing the outcome outright. So I thought that was really awesome of Chuck. So got to give a shout out to Chuck for doing this. However, RJ, Chuck, I got a little issue with this. All right, because does the results point breakdown, and I did better than you, RJ. But then Chuck gave out all these bonus points, and then you're on top, and these are extra credit points for like predicting things in a game that then came to pass, right? So like I'll give you credit, you did predict things that came to pass. But what I find is hysterical is the idea that because Chuck also predicted everything and has his stuff in here. If you look at the actual record for the team, I had the worst record for the team, and it was still optimistic at 44, 31, and 7. And obviously the team did not reach that level. I just find it crazy that I could have the lowest projected record for the team and somehow not have the most points out of this, given the way the season went for the team.
Oh, how the turntables, Dylan. Because every time we play Mario Party, you seem to be trailing by a star or two at the end. And oh, look, it's the bonus stars.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're on top and you win. And it's justice, isn't it, Dylan? It's justice then, isn't it?
Is it? I feel like
you are always yelling the word justice, so I think you believe it's justice, Dylan.
That is true. Because everybody steals all my stars.
Bonus stars.
Why am I down on the stars? It's because everybody steals my stars because I'm doing too well. Yeah, no, that is true. And again, like to your credit, you did project more like extra stuff. I think it might be a blind squirrel nut situation a little bit because you just guess more things than I do. So of course you're going to then end up with more bonus points.
Okay, let's go to game number 45. Tell me
the one specific example of the email.
Yeah, tell me if a blind squirrel could do this. I got 2 points in one game alone because I correctly predicted that Connor McDavid would have 1 point, that Draisaitl would have 4, and they'd mostly be on the power play, and 3 of us 4 were on the power play.
Yeah. Who could project the Oilers doing well against the Kraken last year?
The specific number of points, Dylan. Fine. All right. See if you can do it.
No.
See if you can do it this year.
I guess I will. I don't like doing the bonus ones anyway, so we'll see how when the situation grabs me. When the vibes are there. We'll see. But I do want to thank Chuck one more time for putting this whole thing together. If bonus points count, by the way, it looks like, Chuck didn't use bonus points, so Chuck was not allowed to win there, I guess. But it was still cool that you threw that together, Chuck, and it gave us a good laugh when we got the email earlier.
Oh yeah, it was very fun going through it. Huge shout out to Chuck there.
Yeah. All right, now on to the predicting. RJ, are you ready? Should we warm up and do the preseason?
No,
I shook my head vigorously after saying that. Yeah, no. Season start, RJ, and we're just gonna dive into this because this podcast always goes long. Season start, RJ, October 8th, 1:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, a non-holiday Tuesday. Everybody's gonna be there, Climate Pledge Arena, skipping out on work to watch to watch a home opener, first game for the NHL season. What you got, RJ? Kraken against the Blues.
Okay, so everything about this game, under the old coaching, everything would tell you this should be a loss. It's a 1:30 start time. Kraken did not perform well there. They'll probably have a few games off after the last days off after the last preseason game. This just spells disaster for a Dave Hackstall coach team.
Yeah,
this is a different era. This is the Dan Bilesma era. I think the Kraken are going to get a big new coach bump right off the bat, and they'll come out and win this one convincingly against St. Louis. They'll be amped up for the home opener. I'm feeling optimistic.
I'm feeling optimistic too. I think they're going to make the most of this first time starting a season at home. I think that's going to be big. I'm with you. To be honest, trap game a year ago. This just screams trap game. But also, I feel like if some of the moves that the Kraken had done this year hadn't been done, I feel like all 82 games would be considered trap games, to be perfectly honest. So I think that, yes, you're going to have, the two new additions. Brandon Montour is going to be in the lineup. Chandler Stevenson's going to be in the lineup, able to win faceoffs for this team. Like, that's going to be big. I think Shane Wright's going to be around and raring to go and want to start off the season strong. I am giving the Kraken a win there against St. Louis as well. And then, RJ, 4 days later when they play again, because that's how you start a season. You start a season, then immediately have 3 days off before going on the road. On the road on October 12th against the Minnesota Wild, I think the Kraken they dropped that one. I think that's a long time off. I think it's enough time off that you don't get any momentum for winning the home opener. And also Minnesota, this will be a good test to see where this team is at from an offensive standpoint, because that should be kind of an offensive game. But I just think that the 3 days off is just kind of like awkward to then also go on the road. So I'm just going to kind of give them the L for this one.
Yeah, I had the same thought process here. I hate to agree with you twice through 2 games, but the 3 days off, I think after a big win, which we're both predicting in game 1, that energy is going to kind of dissipate a little bit with the time off. Minnesota's a good team. They've matched up well against the Kraken in the past. Matt Boldy always seems to do something really impressive, so I could see that happening again in this game. But I'll start the season at 1-1.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think that's the most winnable game of this road trip. As I'm kind of looking at it,
it's a tough trip.
To be honest, I will say this: that game against Minnesota probably comes down to special teams, realistically. And can the Kraken new look power play keep up with the Minnesota power play? I think that's going to be a big one there. So you can mark that down. Whoever has more power play goals wins that game. There's my first extra prediction there. The very next day, RJ, the Kraken have to fly south. They go from Minnesota to Dallas, and they play the Dallas Stars on the 13th at 5:00. That's tough back to back.
That's a long flight for a back to back.
That's a long flight for a back to back for sure. Yeah,
Dallas is good. I mean, here, I'll go. We can say.
Huh? Yeah, I was going to say, I don't feel great about that.
I don't, but I think they're going to put in a good effort. I'm going to give them an OTL here. We'll do our first OTL of the season. They'll push it to overtime, but they'll lose there.
Okay, that's fine. I think they just drop it in regulation just because, Dallas is just a better team. That's it. That's all I'm going off of, is this, that the other team's a better team. Then 2 days later, on the 15th, we're going to Nashville. This is the last game of this road trip in Nashville. And for some reason, RJ, I feel like it's a win. I feel like they could go in there. I know Nashville's new look. Nashville's a good team. They've got a lot of stuff. But I just feel like there's no way the Kraken go on a 3-game road trip and they don't pick up a W. And if they lose the special teams battle in Minnesota, this is where they pick up their win.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think it's going to be a win against Nashville. Yeah, you have to get a win somewhere on this trip. I think they will. Like, I'm a big believer in the new coach bump. I think they're going to get off to a hot start. It's just the schedule looks really tough at the beginning. Also, I think the Preds, they made a lot of big additions in the offseason. They're looking good on paper. Might take a little time for it all to come together.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Playing them earlier in the season, I think, will be a good thing.
Yep. Then Kraken start a 5-game homestand on the 17th against the Philadelphia Flyers, RJ.
Yep. I'm going with another win here. I again, the new coach bump, I think, is going to be a thing. Now, this would be an ultimate trap game if this was a Hackstall team. I feel like we're going to mention this a lot, right? Because Philly, they work really hard, but they're not the most skilled team. I do not trust a Hackstall coach team to win against a team like that, especially coming back home after a tough road trip.
Yeah.
But I think Bilesma's going to have the guys ready. The Kraken should win on this skill matchup.
I agree with that. I have the Kraken winning against the Flyers as well. 2 days later, on Saturday the 19th, we got the Calgary Flames, which, when looking at all the teams in the NHL, Calgary's got a bottom 5 roster probably. I feel like this is another easy one. Calgary always plays the Kraken tough, but I feel like it being at Climate Pledge, I can give the Kraken a win here.
Yep, I'm sticking on the win train with you here. Calgary, it should probably be a pretty tough season for them. They were bailed out by goaltending a lot last year. I mean, who knows? Maybe Dustin Wolf comes in there and has a really good game close to where he played junior. I don't know, but I'm not counting on that. So another Kraken win here.
Even if he does, I just can't imagine them keeping up with the Kraken scoring, which is a wild thing to say. Uh, Next game is at home against the Colorado Avalanche on October 22nd. Avalanche are just a really good team. They are a better team than the Kraken. I think the Avalanche just take this one.
I think they take it, but in overtime. Because the Kraken, they have matched up against Colorado well. I still think they'll be playing pretty well at this point, but I think Colorado's skill is going to win out, especially in the 3-on-3 setting. Mm-hmm. So I'll give Colorado the overtime win here.
Okay, interesting. 2 days later, Winnipeg comes to town. What are you feeling about the Jets coming to Climate Pledge on the 24th of October, RJ?
This is where I think things start to cool down a little bit for the Kraken after the 4-1-1 start, that good game against Colorado. I think there could be a little bit of a letdown after giving all your effort against Colorado, having the overtime loss. So I'm going to go regulation loss here against Winnipeg.
This is where I have my first OTL of the season. I think it's Winnipeg might be a little dicey this year. I think the Kraken can, do well against them, but also it's early season Connor Hellebuck that you're going up against, and I feel like that means the Kraken can't quite get the W, but I feel like they could play the Jets hard enough to go to overtime. So I have the Kraken picking up an OTL against Winnipeg on the 24th. Final game of the homestand is October 26th against the Carolina Hurricanes, RJ. This one's tough. I almost want to go back-to-back OTLs here, just because I feel like the Kraken should be competitive against a Carolina team. They tend to do well against the Hurricanes early on in the season, if my memory serves correct. I think they could probably go to overtime here. I feel like it's one where the defense and goaltending for the Kraken is better than Carolina, but Carolina's got a little bit more offensive firepower. Feels like kind of a toss-up for me.
I feel like you're justified in picking an OTL on October 26th against Carolina, because last year the Kraken played Carolina on October 26th and they lost in overtime.
There you go. It's just a tradition.
Yeah, it's a tradition. But you know what? I'm going to go with another tradition. I'm going to go with a win here, regulation win, because the Kraken also played Carolina early in the season, October 19th, just a week before that, at home, and they won 7-4 at home. They'll be at home this time, so I'll have them closing out the homestand with a win, getting us to a 5-2-2 start on the season.
All right. Yes, I'm at this point. I was going to wait till I'll wait till the end of the month. Then we can
that's true. That's true. I just wanted to mark that as because I think they're going to start hot, as I've mentioned a few times.
Yep.
That's the point I'm trying to drive home.
Yep. October 29th, the Kraken go back on the road. They're going to Eastern Canada here, RJ. 29th in Montreal. How you feeling about this game? Shane Wright going to Montreal, RJ. Should be fun.
It should be fun. Yeah, knowing Shane Wright really ought to be playing in that game. Yuri Slafkovsky ought to be playing in that game. It's going to be a fun matchup between the two of them. Patrick Laine, new addition for Montreal, should be playing in that one as well. I'm going to go with another win here. I think they're going to keep it rolling against Montreal. Look, Montreal's made some good additions, but the Kraken, I think, are still the better team. Mm-hmm. And I like him to win here.
I do too. I think Shane Wright's going to be motivated for that game. I think it'll be close, but I think this is another one where, I feel like the defense and the goaltending for the Kraken kind of give them the edge and are enough to see them through. And then on Halloween night, RJ, last day of the month of October, the 31st, they are going to be in Toronto. It's Toronto. I just don't think the Kraken have the firepower yet. Give Shane Wright a full season before he can kind of hang in there with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Willie Nylander, and everything that Toronto's got. I think the Kraken just dropped this one in regulation.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. Win streak ends here. Toronto, Kraken have struggled with that firepower for a long time. It seems like they always get new coaching staff. Maybe things are different, but I like the Leafs on paper a lot more, certainly in the regular season.
Yeah. So at the end of the month of October, RJ, I have the Kraken with a record of 5-4-2.
Okay. I've got 6-3-2, so one game better, but both of us winning records at the end of October.
Yeah, well, we're big believers in Disco coming in and that new coach bump, obviously. And you know what? I feel like as Kraken fans, we would take slightly above 500 for that opening month of the season after last year. I feel like the fan base could be on board with this for sure. All right, to kick off November, first game of the month, continuing that road trip in Canada, taking on the Ottawa Senators on November 2nd, RJ. How are you feeling about that one?
Games are always really interesting between Seattle and Ottawa, right? I mean,
They're
it feels like
wacky.
they're always pretty drama filled. Yeah, I mean, what were the two last year? It was a 4-1 win and that 2-0 loss, that awful 2-0 loss that they really should have won.
Yeah.
They'll take care of whatever issues are there. Ullmark gives me a little pause. I think he's going to have, if he gets the start, he's going to have a really strong game. It's going to take the Kraken a while to break through, but I think ultimately they will, and they'll get a, I'll go overtime win here. I know it just counts as a win in the standings, but I'll go overtime win against Ottawa.
I think Ullmark is good, but I just think the rest of that roster for Ottawa is just not there. I don't know that Ullmark will have it in front of him. I feel pretty safe about the Kraken just winning that one. And that's at least one of the games that the Kraken should just win. So it might be a kind of a telling game early on in the season for us as to where this team really is. But I feel like that's one they should just straight up take the W. The very next day, they go to Boston, RJ. Now, Kraken tend to play decent sometimes in Boston. They play the Bruins.
It's always
hard.
Appointment viewing. It is a great game.
It is always a really good game. Figure Matty Beniers maybe shows up for this one. Joey Decord in net. Maybe that makes a difference. But I think Boston is still the better team. But I'm going to say that it is going to be an OTL because of the Boston vibes. The Kraken tend to do well. They play well in those. But I still think that Boston will end up taking that one. But I think it'll be in overtime.
I was tempted to go OTL, but I think I'm going to go regulation loss here because Boston, again, look, they're a really good team. They play the Kraken really close every time. I think a lot of that matchup type of thing was a Dave Haxtell thing. I think the Kraken are going to be running a different system. I don't know how well that'll work out. It might work out really well, but I don't trust it yet, especially on the second half of a back-to-back. Yeah. And a slightly earlier start time as well. Yeah. It's going to be 5:00 local. So it's like 2:00 for what the Kraken are used to. It seems weird to me.
It is a weird one. I will admit that the vibes, as I was talking up their performances in Boston, moved it from an L to an OTL, but I still feel good about that. On November 5th, to round out the road trip that the Kraken are on, they're going to be in Denver, taking on the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I have an issue with this, RJ, because if you are the NHL, you know years in advance when, I don't know, a U.S. presidential election is going to be happening. You know what date it's going to be happening on. Why are you deciding to schedule games on that day? And not only that, they end up scheduling 11 games on this day. And it makes no sense to me from a business perspective because who will be tuning in to watch these games? Who's going to these games in person? I know there's a lot of people that maybe aren't political, but still, this is a huge, you're going to get crushed ratings wise. Nobody's going to be watching these games on TV. I really don't understand why the NHL decided to schedule so many games on November 5th that aren't Canadian. It's one thing to schedule all Canada matchups. They have one of those. I don't know. The NBA doesn't schedule games on voting day. They like to go out and promote voting. They don't schedule games on today. But the NHL was just no, Kraken fans, you probably want to follow the election. Guess what? You got to watch them lose to the Avalanche because I think this game will be a loss.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a loss too. And I share your complaint on this too. It's just not smart business wise from the NHL to schedule. If there's one or two games, you need to work it out schedule wise. But no, they've thrown 11 games here, 22 out of the league's 32 teams playing on this night. People are going to be watching election coverage one way or the other. Most people are going to be watching election coverage. I feel like probably not hockey as much. It'll be interesting to see how many fans are in the building for that game. I'm going to try and get a gauge of attendance. It's in Colorado, so we won't, have that same as if it was in Seattle, but come on, NHL, what are you doing?
Yeah. Kraken then get a couple days off before coming home to start a long homestand here on November 8th against the Vegas Golden Knights. RJ, first look at Vegas. How you feeling about that matchup?
Still not great. I never feel great about a matchup with Vegas, to be honest. I'm going to put this as a regulation loss. I'll probably do that for all the Vegas games this season. I think Chandler Stevenson's going to score a goal, though. He won't kick it in, but I think
Okay.
he's.
So header? We going with header?
Yeah, we go hit header. There we
Okay,
go. He'll hit
cool.
the puck into the net.
Cool.
We can split the point on that one if he does it because you came up with the idea.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. How equitable of you, RJ. I think that's an L for the Kraken as well in regulation. Then we have on the 12th, get a nice 3 days off before Columbus comes to town on the 12th. I think this is a get right game for the Kraken. It's Columbus. Kraken are better than Columbus. You should be better than Columbus. Take the 2 points. Just do it.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. It's Columbus. I was going to use that exact phrase. It's Columbus. This should be a win, especially after that Vegas game. There's a couple days off in between. I think it's a good reset game.
Yeah.
Actually, well, no, because here's the thing. The vibes are going to be fixed too, potentially, by the skills showcase.
Skills showcase, exactly. The day after the Vegas game.
Exactly. Be the day after the Vegas game. Everyone's going to be feeling good. The losing streak can end at that point. Couple easy opponents coming up. It just works out perfectly.
Yeah. Another easy one, although is it so easy, on the 14th against the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm kind of split here because I want to say that the Kraken are just better than the Blackhawks, but like year 2 Connor Bedard, Blackhawks have made some additions. I think this one could be closer than we might think.
Yeah, it could be. They're a better team than they were last year. That's for sure. They're not going to be the easy pushovers they were last season, but I think the Kraken are also going to be better. I believe in the staying power of the vibes from the skills showcase, assuming that's happening. It should be able to last more than one game. Regulation win here.
All right. I think this is going to be a Connor Bedard game, and I think the Kraken find a way to lose in regulation.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
I just, for something about this is giving me really bad vibes, and I'm going with it. Next up is the New York Islanders on the 16th at home. I feel like bad vibes, they can wash them away. I think this is going to be one of the benefits of having Dan as the coach this year, is that they won't be as streaky on the bad side of things. I think the Kraken bounce back and take this one against the Islanders in regulation.
All right, now we're starting to diverge here because I think this is where the vibes end. It's going to be a matinee game, 1 p.m. start. And those have always kind of spelled disaster, it feels like. And the Islanders, again, they just have this ability to lull you to sleep and then counterattack when it matters. I don't know. I especially after a couple wins against easier teams, I think the Islanders are going to really make you work for it more than Columbus and Chicago. And so I'll chalk it up to a loss here. But again, they're not that good. Oh, okay. OTL.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're destined to go to shootouts with them. That's just what we do.
I was going to say shootout loss, not just over. I can't picture anybody scoring in overtime with these two teams.
No.
We'll go shootout loss.
I think the matinee vibes are going to be different this year, and I think they're going to be because of Shane Wright. I'm calling it right now. Shane Wright's going to be our matinee superstar this year.
Okay.
There you
Potentially
go.
earning a few bonus points here.
Yeah. The very next day, the Kraken have to take on the Rangers. They have to host the Rangers there on the 17th. I don't feel good about that. Back-to-back nights, especially after having to play an Islanders team. Win or lose, it's going to be a tough game, and you're going to just not be feeling great after it. The next night, you got to host the Rangers. That's just a scheduled loss as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, agreed. I don't think there's much more to that. Hopefully the lights stay on this time.
Yeah, that would be nice.
There's my prediction. I do not deserve an extra point for it, but I predict the lights will not go out this year in the Rangers home game.
That's a good bet. I like that. And then last game of the homestand on November 20th against the Nashville Predators, RJ. How are you feeling about that one?
I'm feeling pretty conflicted on this one because it feels like now they're starting to get into that 500 type. You win some, you lose some, and I'm not really sure how to play this one. I think Nashville will have gelled a little bit better. There's also a couple days off. Mm-hmm. This one feels like an actual, not just like a Hackstall team trap game, but an actual trap game for me because there's a couple days off in between. It's at the end of a homestand, and maybe you don't finish the strongest. But I think it'll be close. I'll go with another OTL. Maybe this is too many OTLs, but that's what I'm going to go with. Also, if the lights do go off in New York, feel free to dock me a couple points.
Yeah, seriously. I'm not feeling good about this Nashville game. I think the fact that we gave them the win earlier these two games will kind of offset. I think the Kraken lose that one in regulation. Then the next game is going to be against the LA Kings in LA. RJ, Kraken always play great.
First of 5 games in a row against California teams.
I know, I love it.
That's going to be fun.
They just want me to be homesick in late November, clearly. The Kraken always play fantastic in crypto. I think the Kraken find the way to pick up the W here against the Kings.
Yeah, it's a 1 p.m. start time, which again, if you think the matinee games are going to be good this year, which I could see in this one. Look, you're right. They always play well in crypto. Will they play well in crypto without you potentially, though?
That is a question. I don't know.
Actually, I'm going to reverse course. I say they lose this one because you're not there.
Ooh, that's interesting. We'll find out. And maybe the matinee is a little rough, but I still feel like they just always play strong there. Maybe it's like an OT win. I could see something like that for them. Then 2 days later, November 25th, they're going to be in Anaheim. Now, for whatever reason, they struggle in Anaheim. Those games are always closer than they should be, RJ. I think the Kraken are still just that much better than the Ducks, but I think it's going to be an overtime win against the Ducks in Anaheim.
Okay, I'm going to stick with a win here, but I don't think it'll be in overtime. I think it'll be in regulation. This is still a Greg Cronin coached Ducks team, and I have zero faith in him to put everything together and make it look good. They just look so lost at the end of last season. So I'll skip ahead here because they play the Anaheim Ducks 2 games in a row.
Yep.
So it's 25th and 27th at Anaheim, and then at home against Anaheim. I think the Kraken win both of those games, and I think you take the combined score from all of that, the Kraken are up more than 5 goals. I think they're neither game is particularly close.
I think they absolutely dominate in the game on the 27th, the Kraken at home. Like, it's just like I said, because I've been in the building for those games in Anaheim, for whatever reason, they always end up closer than they should be. They just, I don't know what it is about the Honda Center. Kraken just don't traditionally play well. Speaking of bad teams that they sometimes struggle in their home barn against, November 29th against the Sharks, RJ, in San Jose, 12:30 Pacific start on a Friday. This has trap game written all over it. I think the Sharks are a really bad team, but the Kraken always struggle with these. I'm giving them an OTL.
Yeah, I'm giving them a regulation loss.
That's
this
fair.
One it is like we've seen this happen too many times before. This feels like the game. I know you had a specific Sharks related prediction for these games to see. Do you want to make it here? Do you think it happens in this game? Of the games, this would be the game for the Alex Wenberg hat trick. Absolutely. Because you floated this to me.
Yeah.
You're like, Alex Wenberg's going to get a hat trick at some point.
It's either this or if they're like the last game of the season, it might be there. But like, yeah, Wenberg's going to have himself a day, and the Sharks will pick up a win because of it at some point.
Yeah, I could see that happening. It's just, it all makes too much sense. So, but yeah, I think regulation win for the Sharks here. It's just such a trap game, but they have another chance. These are back-to-backs, by the way. They're in San Jose. Then the very next day, they are in Seattle against San Jose, 7 p.m. start. Do you think it goes any better for them in their second chance?
Yes, that's a W.
Yep, I agree. I think they will learn their lesson. They'll get back on the right foot. I think Celebrini will score a goal in Seattle just to show you up a little bit, because I know you've doubted him. So I think he'll score there.
That's fair.
And I'll turn to you and be like, what? Not an offensive threat? Come on.
Yeah.
But the Kraken will still win.
Be incredible when that's his first goal of the season on November 30th.
It will not be. Hang on. Actually, let's see. How many games in will there be? I'll try and predict like what goal that will be for him.
I think it'll be goal 5 without looking.
Okay, we're like 25, 26 games in.
Oh,
I think it'll be goal.
Maybe it'll be more than that then.
8.
Yeah.
We'll go goal 8.
All right. At the end of November, RJ, I have the Kraken with a record of 12-9-4.
Oh, okay, where have I miscounted then? Because I'm
did I miscount?
10-4.
I might have miscounted because we were talking.
This happened last year too.
I know. I think I marked down for all of these games. I might have. Did I not mark down the? No, because I would have marked down the OTL for.
No, you have. I counted. It's 25 games in, so I have this wrong. It's wrong on my end. Maybe it's 11. No.
You gave them too many wins against the Ducks, RJ. You were so overconfident.
Now we've already messed up. All right. Well, Chuck can tell us where we went wrong here.
Yes. We look forward to your email at the end of July next year, RJ, Chuck, to find out where RJ messed up. On to December. Kraken go back on a road trip, East Coast swing this time. December 3rd against the Carolina Hurricanes, RJ. In Carolina, I don't feel as good about this one. I think the Kraken take a regulation loss.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with this too, especially with only a couple days off in between, but still heading out on the road. I don't like them to start this trip well. These are difficult road trips too, especially when you're on the East Coast. You got 3rd, 5th, 6th, 8th. It's just a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Thursday, the 5th, December 5th against the New York Islanders. I think this is a win for the Kraken, and it might be their only win this road trip.
Yeah, okay, we're on a similar path here because I think they eke out an overtime win, but yeah, it doesn't get a whole lot better for them on this trip.
No, very next day, December 6th against New Jersey. I think we've already telegraphed that's a loss.
Yep, I think that's a regulation loss. New Jersey's going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. Does Jack Hughes show up though, Dylan? Does he get a point
intriguing.
In this game? 'Cause you say he always disappears against the Kraken.
He always disappears against the Kraken. It's early enough in the year; he should still be healthy. I think this might be the Jack Hughes game. For the first time against the Kraken, I'll call that. Jack Hughes will show up and register at least a point on Friday, December 6th against the Kraken. 2 days later, Kraken got to go to MSG, play the Rangers. I don't feel good about that. That's a loss.
Nope. 10 a.m. start. Well, it's 1 p.m. local, but 10 a.m. Pacific start time.
That's not happening. That game exists just so that we can't watch football, RJ.
Exactly. Yeah. I know we'll have Emerald City therapy going on with football in the side window.
Join us post game live for that one where we're just watching Red Zone. That's what we can all do together. Kraken then come back home on December 10th to face the reigning Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. But here's the thing, RJ. Kraken always play the Panthers tough. They always play well against the Panthers. I think the Kraken get things right and they pick up a win on December 10th at home to kick off their homestand.
Okay, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go with a loss here because the whole, they always play this team tough. The matchups with this team, I think a lot of that could flip this year, just given that it's new coach, new systems, all of that. Yeah. And against Florida, what an opportunity for it to flip, right? I feel like you can't beat a team that good, that consistently for that long.
Yeah.
I think they're due for a loss here.
I respect it. December 12th against the Boston Bruins in Climate Pledge. I think this is where, again, they always play the Bruins tough, but it seems like these games in Seattle, they tend to be regulation losses instead of like pushing things towards overtime. I think Boston takes this, but it's only by 1. I don't even think Boston can get the empty net goal, but I still feel like Boston takes it in regulation.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the regulation loss too here. And the same thing with Boston. If this was actually a Hackstall coach team, I think I might go Kraken win here just because I like at least the split for them in the season series against Boston. But I think some of this stuff flips. Boston's a really good team. And this might be one of the tougher stretches of the season, at least through 4 games. You got New York Rangers, Florida, Boston, and then Tampa Bay.
I was going to say, how do you feel about that Tampa Bay game on December 14th at home? Because I'm going to go on the record right now. This will be the worst game of the season. It's just going to be like an unwatchable, boring, you're stuck at Climate Pledge on a Saturday. If there's ever a game to skip on the schedule, everybody, and not go to a game, go enjoy a Saturday instead, even though it's the heart of December, I feel like it's this one against the Lightning.
Yeah, I don't see it going particularly well. I'm going to go low scoring regulation loss, which I guess matches everything that you said as far as just go and enjoy something else for this game. Tampa always just plays so disciplined. I know the Kraken got their first win against Tampa last year, so they have kind of slain that dragon a little bit. And both of the games against Tampa last year went to overtime, so those were fun, both of them. But yeah, I just don't see this one going well. I think it starts to kind of drop off for the Kraken here as they have 4 tough opponents in a row.
3-0 Tampa win with an empty net.
Oh, yeah, no, that would be worth skipping, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Ottawa comes into town on the 17th, last home game of, not of the year, never mind. But it's the last home game of this homestand against the Ottawa Senators. This is the get right game for the Kraken.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the get right game. Ottawa, I think I had I forget what I had in the earlier Ottawa game this season, but the Kraken have to get at least one win against them. Like it's no, I had them already getting the win, but yeah, they'll sweep the season series.
Yeah,
I don't see this being much of a problem for them.
I agree. Chicago on December 19th. Now, I had Chicago taking that earlier game. I think this is where the Kraken come back and things are good, and the Kraken pick up a W in Chicago on the 19th.
Yeah, I'm going with a win here too. I think I'll probably pick Kraken wins for all the Chicago games. I don't know what games they have left, but I just don't think the Blackhawks are much of a threat. Maybe it's from watching them too much last season and seeing how, and I know they did beat the Kraken at one point, but like they just weren't any good. I don't think they've gotten that much better, and the Kraken should take care of business.
Yep. Then brutal weekend here. The last games before Christmas, brutal, brutal, brutal. Got December 21st in Vegas and then December 22nd in Colorado. I'm counting both these as L's.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think they'll both be L's. I think the Vegas game regulation loss, but I will actually go OTL against Colorado because yeah, I think the regulation loss against Vegas will be bad. I think they'll kind of have Christmas in their minds and the break and everything, and they'll lose pretty badly to Vegas. And so then the message will be going into Colorado. All right, are we going to just go into break and kind of give up? Are we going to put together a good effort? I think they will, but it'll go to, I think I have the second OTL against Colorado, but like 3-on-3, you can't beat them, but I think they'll play them close.
Yeah. Then first game after the Christmas break, going up to Vancouver on the 28th to take on the Canucks. First time we'll be seeing Daniel Sprong in a Canucks sweater, RJ. Is this the game he goes off?
No, I don't think this is the game he goes off. I don't think he'll have a point in this one, but I still think Vancouver is going to win it. Them being at home, it's just a really tough matchup, and especially with the Kraken coming off the holiday break. I don't know what Vancouver's schedule looks like if it's their first game back, but yeah, I'm going to have them taking this one.
I agree. I just think I'm very curious, more so than any matchup with Dan Bylsma as the coach now. I'm very curious to see how the Kraken handle the Rick Tocchet transitional attack that Vancouver used so effectively last year, because I just feel like Dan Bylsma and the different forechecking systems and stuff he uses might throw a little bit more of a wrench in the works for Vancouver than anything the Kraken were doing last year. But I'm really, really curious to see the matchups against Vancouver this year, just from a coaching perspective. I'm very interested in that. By the way, join me tonight for my coaching live stream. Forgot to promote that.
Oh earlier. Yeah, we got to plug that. Yeah,
join me at 7:00 on Patreon for the coaching live stream. And then last game of 2024, RJ, at home, the Utah hockey team, club, is coming to town on the 30th. I think the Kraken end 2024 with a win against Utah at home.
I agree. I mean, the Kraken played pretty well against the Coyotes historically. I know they'll be in a whole different location, and they're trying to make a push this year. But I think the vibes are going to be good. It'll be interesting. Just it's going to be one of those fun games to go to and to cover, because it's your first time seeing this team as it is, and I think it's going to feel like a party. The year's ending, we'll celebrate everything, and hopefully to a happier 2025.
Yep. Now, at the end of 2024, RJ, I have the Kraken at 17, 17, and 4.
Okay, I have them again. I have the extra game here, so I don't know where this came from, but I have 16, 18, and 5.
Okay. But we both are thinking right around that 500 mark. And you know what? That tracks, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, we will get into it more with the division preview next week and kind of seeing what we do. But I think we're both feeling improvement, but maybe not, not world beater status here for the Kraken.
Yes, not necessarily playoff spot. Kicking off the new year, first game is at home against the Vancouver Canucks. So we get to see Vancouver come in again. Is this the Daniel Sprong game, RJ?
Yes. This is the Daniel Sprong game. It's in Seattle. He's going to go off. He's going to score 2 goals. He's going to score multiple goals in this game. I don't think he'll get enough ice time to get a hat trick. If there is an empty net situation, he will get a hat trick into the empty net. But I don't think there is going to be, because I think the Kraken are still going to win this one in regulation.
I think the Kraken win this one as well. I just, for whatever reason, I feel like Vancouver doesn't play great in Seattle historically, and I think the Kraken will find a way to pick up the W here.
And
Maybe
you know
it's
what?
the
I'll add
Sprung.
one thing to it too. I
Yeah,
think that the Kraken fourth line steps up in this game and it turns into Daniel Sprong versus the new Kraken fourth line. Whatever that is, Sprong will get a couple goals. The Kraken fourth line will get a couple goals, showing, hey, maybe we don't need him on the fourth line. It's going to be a fun back and forth battle.
it should be a good one there. Um, get our first look at Connor McDavid, RJ. Saturday, January 4th. It's a home game. That doesn't actually bode well, though, historically. This is a loss.
Yep. Adding that one to the L column. All right, Dylan. Anyone can do this. How many points is McDavid getting? How many points is Draisaitl getting?
McDavid gets 3, Draisaitl gets 2.
Okay. We'll see if you're
Just
right.
because I feel like they don't need to do too much in that one, actually. Monday, last game of the homestand. January.
Oh, wait, that's not them doing much? That's not them doing a lot? 5 points combined?
I don't feel like it is for those guys.
All right.
I feel like that's average for them, especially when they're playing a non-playoff team. I feel like that's average for them.
All right.
Monday, January 6th, hosting the New Jersey Devils. I feel like the Devils are just better. Having Markstrom just makes them better. This is a loss.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with a win here. I think Jack Hughes doesn't show up, and so you hold that over me because he won't get any points. But I think the Kraken will win. Excuse me, sorry. As I start coughing there, maybe that's a bad sign that my prediction is incorrect here. But I don't know, just feeling a win here.
All right. Kraken go on a road trip, 5-game road trip. First game's kicking off in Columbus. These games never go smooth in Columbus, but it'll still be a win. Somebody might leave injured, but it'll be a win.
Yeah, I'm going win here too. This road trip, I think, is a good opportunity to go out on the road and get some wins under their belt. And I think this one might provide even a little false hope, given how the season I might have ending. But
Yeah.
this road trip is going to have everyone feeling good about things.
All right. Next game, January 11th against the Buffalo Sabres. I feel like Buffalo is going to be better this year. They might be like, this will be a red glare topic, but I think Buffalo might be sneaky good this year. I think this is going to be a regulation loss for the Kraken in Buffalo.
With the theme of this road trip that I'm keeping, I think another win. They're going to get the win. I think the Kraken players are going to want to get this one for Dan.
Yeah.
Things didn't go the best in Buffalo, and I know it's been a little while, but I think everyone's going to be really motivated to go and win this one.
Yeah. The very next day in Detroit, Kraken historically play good games in Detroit. This game's going to overtime. We know that. It's just a matter of do the Kraken pick up the W or do they not pick up the W? I think they lose in overtime this time in Detroit. I think it's an every other year thing.
Okay. I'm going to stick with the result from last year. I think they're going to go overtime win. And this time I'm going to be able to see it. This time I'm going to be watching the game. They're going to win in overtime. It's going to be some great dramatic game. And I won't miss it this time.
Yep. January 14th in Pittsburgh. Kraken are better than Pittsburgh. Like, I know you got Crosby, you got Malkin, you got Letang, you got Erik Karlsson. Outside of that, you don't got too much going on. In Pittsburgh, I think the Kraken pick up a W here against one of Dan's former teams.
I was going to say, Dan Bilesma Revenge Tour road trip continues. Get the win over Pittsburgh. Everyone's feeling great.
Yep.
And it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-game win streak I have.
Yes. Does it continue into the last game of the road trip in Winnipeg, RJ?
I think it does.
Wow.
I think they sweep the road trip. This is the one that they sweep.
That would be exciting. It's a good road trip for that. I'm with you. I think good vibes continue on into Winnipeg. I have them winning that game. But yeah, that would be awesome if they could sweep that road trip. That'd be good. That'd be worth some bonus points if they do on your end, I think. LA comes to town. Kraken then go on a nice little homestand here. LA comes to town on the 18th. I feel like this is where the Kings get their revenge for the game in crypto. Back in November. I think the Kings just take this one.
I'm going to disagree. I think Kraken win. Again, it'll be an overtime. It'll be a close one, and maybe you'll see some signs of some deteriorating play because you can't keep up this great play forever.
Mm-hmm.
Coming off, 6-game win streak that you'll have, but I think they extend it to 7. but we start to have some questions about, okay, how are they actually playing? Can they keep this up?
Okay. Do they keep it up January 20th against Buffalo at home, RJ?
They do not. I think this is the start of the revenge tour for a lot of these Eastern teams. Buffalo coming home. It's a 1 p.m. start. So if you like the matinee games, I've gone a little sour on them so far in these predictions. But if you like them, you should pick a win.
I do like it, and I am picking a win. So there you go.
Shane Wright.
There you go.
Needs to get a point.
Yeah. Why not?
He's a matinee guy.
You know what?
All
Matty, I think outduels Owen Power.
Okay.
Put that on the board. Matty, more points than Owen Power in that one.
Yeah. Okay, so assuming we'll both be there at the game together, does Tage Thompson give me a reason to turn to you and be like, look, see how good he is?
Not in this one. I think that happens in the game in Buffalo.
Okay.
I think that game in Buffalo on the 11th is the Tage Thompson game. I think this game, just for whatever reason, Buffalo just doesn't have it. Maybe it's a backup goalie situation. I don't know, but I just feel like Buffalo drops that one. It's less that the Kraken win, more that Buffalo doesn't show up.
Fair enough.
This one I'm really conflicted on, RJ, and that is the game on January 23rd with the Washington Capitals in town. Because the Capitals have done a lot of work to their roster over the course of this offseason, RJ. It's still not what I would consider a good team, but they've done a lot. I feel like the vibes might be there a little bit for Washington as a one last hurrah season. I think the Kraken dropped this one in overtime.
I think they drop it in regulation. It's going to be a cap unfriendly day for Seattle.
Why you got to bring that up again?
I have to deal with it more than you with the armchair
That's
GM
true.
Streams. It was rough on that last month.
That
it was
is
still a
true.
fun armchair GM stream, but man,
Yeah.
the amount of times I've typed in cap friendly into my browser and just it hasn't come up.
Yep.
So anyway, Kraken lost there.
January 25th, Pittsburgh comes to town again. I just feel like the Kraken are a deeper team than the Penguins. I feel like that comes through, and the Kraken win this one in a shootout.
Okay, the rare shootout win against Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go regulation loss here. The revenge tour continues for these Eastern teams that they beat on the road. I think the Kraken's play, we're really starting to ask more questions now and be like, all right, can they stop the bleeding here after a 3-game losing streak as they kind of fall down toward, back on the wrong side of that playoff bubble?
Yeah. Last road game of the month, January 27th in Edmonton. That doesn't feel good. That's a loss.
Yep, I think I'm going to go losses for all these Edmonton games. They're just so tough.
Yep.
I'll go McDavid. McDavid 4 points, Draisaitl 0.
Whoa. Draisaitl's hurt then, I guess. The very next day, Kraken got to come back home to face the Anaheim Ducks. I think that's a get-right game. They could beat the Ducks at home.
They should beat the Ducks at home.
It's brutal with the travel in there, but I still feel like they're better.
I don't think they will, because I had them taking both games in Anaheim against Anaheim earlier in the season, and convincingly.
Yeah.
Revenge tour continues for these other teams.
Ooh,
I
man.
think they dropped it in regulation.
All right, everybody. If you got to take a month off from following the Kraken, according to RJ, it might be January. Enjoy the good road trip and then just disappear for a little while. The very last game of the month of January on the 30th, San Jose comes to town. That's a win.
That's the get right game. Finally, I'm having the get right game. The losing streak ends. It's San Jose. The Kraken have learned their various lessons from earlier this season with the Alex Wenberg hat trick against them. They're not going to let that happen again. Celebrini is held without a point. Kraken win convincingly.
Perfect. Love it. Kickoff February at home against the Calgary Flames, RJ, on February 2nd. How you feel about that?
I'm going to go regulation loss here.
Interesting.
Nope,
really?
no, I'm changing it. OTL.
Okay.
OTL. They'll still play it a little bit better, but Calgary is going to be better than San Jose, and they're still going to have some flaws in their game to work out.
Okay. I think this is a win for the Kraken. I just think Calgary's that bad. I just have no faith in that roster. Kind of similar to how I feel about Detroit on this game on the 4th. I feel like the Kraken can just win that one at home.
I'll go second straight OTL here. I think a
Interesting.
shootout loss to Detroit. They're still trying to figure out their game, but their opponents just aren't amazing. They're not world beaters, so it's going to be close games. This one I could see being high scoring too.
Yeah.
5-4, shootout loss or
I
something.
could see something like that too. Yeah. February 6th, Toronto comes to town. That's a loss.
Yep, that's a
Uh,
loss. Toronto, enough said.
yep. And then last game before the Four Nations break, RJ, in Calgary on February 8th. That's where I have an OTL. I think Calgary really steps up big for that one. I think the Kraken are going to be having their eyes on whatever vacation they've got planned for the upcoming break. And I think the Kraken, again, they're that much better that they can at least get to overtime. But I feel like Calgary ends up walking away with it.
Yeah, I think they'll have their eyes on the break. And when that's the case, you can't even count on getting to overtime necessarily. I'm going regulation loss.
All right. Coming out of the break, February 22nd. It's a nice long break for this Four Nations tournament. I like it. February 22nd in Florida, taking on the Panthers. I feel like this one, the Kraken drop.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is just a tough spot to be in. I'm trying to see. It is the Panthers' first game back as well from that break. So both teams will probably be a little rusty, but I just think the home team and the talent's going to win out.
Florida will actually have players playing in the tournament, so maybe they won't be as rusty.
Actually, that's true. You know what? Yeah, they might have guys that will have played through that break. So there you go.
The very next day, got to go to Tampa. I don't feel good about that. I think that's a loss there too for the Kraken.
Yeah, second half of back-to-backs. I think they'll also have plenty of guys that will have played in that tournament as well and won't be as rusty.
Yeah. And then closing out the month of February on February 25th in St. Louis. This one's an interesting one for me.
I could see it being close. I already have too many OTLs. No, I'm going to go regulation loss. Revenge tour from opening night.
I feel that same way. I feel like St. Louis just finds a way to take that one. I just do. All right, into the month of March. Here we go. Closing in on the trade deadline, RJ. Things start on March 1st at home against Vancouver.
Here, you go first because I'm looking up when the trade deadline is because I
Okay.
think that's going to be relevant.
I think this is a loss for the Kraken at home against Vancouver.
Okay, the trade deadline is March 6th.
Okay, they have a game that day we'll get to.
They do. So we got Vancouver, Minnesota, and then at Nashville on March 6th on trade deadline day. And I have the Kraken here a little bit under 500. I think they're gonna make it difficult on Ron Francis. I think they're gonna try and make it tough on him. So I think they're gonna win against Vancouver here. I'm sorry, I forgot what you predicted.
I predicted a loss to Vancouver.
Okay, so I'm going win here, and I'm going actually somewhat convincing regulation win, enough to maybe try and persuade Francis to do something, maybe even try and save his job here, as they're close to the playoff bubble.
See, I think if there's a win coming that in that stretch, the lead up, it's their very next game on March 4th against the Minnesota Wild. I think the Kraken can win a game against the Wild this year. I have them losing earlier in the season. I think this is the one they win.
Okay, I'll go win there also because I think they're just going to make this as tough as they can on Francis leading into the deadline here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. I have them at what 28, 27, and 7. That's at the deadline, like going into deadline day. That's pretty rough. But you know what? Realistically, I just think they're gonna move like a Tanev and a Gord last year. Their contracts. I just think it happens no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I have them at 27, 29, and 7. I know that's counting an extra game here. I mean, if you're at this point in the deadline, I think it just makes all the sense in the world to sell. But I don't know if Francis would be in a position where that would be the case if things continue to go south.
Yeah,
I think you might even maybe see some kind of hockey trade where
maybe
Gord or Tanev go out for another player coming back, or a younger player, somebody who can add to the roster right away, but maybe has a little more term left on the contract or something. I don't know. But it'd be a tough trade deadline if this is where they're at.
Definitely. And I think they drop the game in Nashville on trade deadline day.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult day. I actually think they win this one. Everyone kind of rallies around whatever moves have happened and just they'll thrive in the chaos and all come together as a team. Kind of like they did when Wenberg was being held out of games last year because he was going to get traded. So I'll have a win here.
I was going to say, keep in mind, historically, Ron Francis makes his moves early.
That's true.
There is that to consider in all this. First game post trade deadline. I mean, technically that's the Nashville game, but let's say the March 8th game against the Flyers Again, I just don't have a lot of faith in this Flyers team. I think the Kraken pick up a W.
I think the good vibes from everyone coming together a couple days prior from the trade deadline, I think that all that dissipates. Philly's going to work hard. I will say that about them. They're going to work hard.
Yep.
It's going to be a really early start.
It's
What,
a crazy early
9:30?
start. Yeah,
Yeah,
9:30
12:30
Pacific
local,
time.
9:30 Pacific time. I think that's going to throw some people off, and it's going to be a close game, but I think Philly takes it.
Okay. I have the very next day. They're going into Washington again. An early start, 12:30 Pacific start here. A PDT first game of the season to be that, or not first game of the season, but first one after the time switch.
Yeah, I know.
Washington's going to add at the deadline. Washington's going to be really motivated down the stretch. I think the Kraken lose this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go loss here too. I think Washington maybe will even be better after the deadline. Yeah, they're gonna be motivated. I think just the sell off or whatever will have happened at the deadline. I think it's gonna start to get to people right about now.
Yeah. Couple days off, then you come home for a 3-game swing. First game hosting the Montreal Canadiens. I like this one for the Kraken.
I think I had them beating Montreal earlier in the season. I think this is So revenge tour continues.
Okay.
I don't know. I think wins early and losses late against a lot of these Eastern teams.
Yep. Very next game, March 14th, Utah comes to town. I think that's another W for the Kraken.
I think we've both seen enough Kraken Coyotes games just like that matchup.
Yeah. And I've been saving this, but like the matchup always ended up way too close in Arizona at Mullet, and I think the situation will continue in Utah. But these games in Climate Pledge, I feel like they're safe games for the Kraken.
Yeah, and I don't know that enough has changed about their roster. Look, it's all the same people, largely on the roster and in charge of the team. Yeah, I think that'll continue. So Kraken win here.
Yep. And the last game of the homestand against Winnipeg. This one's tough for me. What do you think?
I'll go OTL here because I think it's going to be close. These ones where I'm feeling on the fence about it, just give me OTL vibes. It'll be for me. I have their 8th OTL of the season, and I think it'll be a proper overtime loss. I don't think this gets to a shootout. It'll be some pretty exciting overtime hockey, but the Jets will get the winner.
See, this one's going to be fascinating because this Winnipeg team could look very different post trade deadline. And I don't know what to make of that, but assuming, I don't know, maybe they add or something. They go for it one last time because everybody's jobs are on the line. I think the Kraken just dropped this one in regulation.
Okay.
All right. Then
I could see it, but yeah, Chicago on the road.
Chicago on the road, March 18th. I think the Kraken pick up the W.
Yep, post-trade deadline, they'll have sold off a lot of their players. Yeah. It's going to be a weak Chicago team.
I actually feel good about this Minnesota game the very next night on March 19th. I think the Kraken can win that one. Maybe it's an overtime win, but I feel like the Kraken take it.
Yeah, I think they do too. I've been pretty rough on them in the back-to-backs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've even had them winning a single one on the second half of back-to-back, so I feel like I should add one there.
They've all been tough back-to-back matchups where like the second half is like the Rangers or something, and it's like brutal.
Yeah, Minnesota at least is a winnable game there on the second half of back-to-back, so I'll give them that.
Yeah. March 22nd in Edmonton. No.
You know, I'm tempted to pick a win here.
Okay.
They won one in Edmonton last year, as bad as that team was.
Yeah.
Win. I'll give them a win. 4-2 win.
All right.
I think it was 4-2, or was it 5-2 when they won last year in Edmonton? It was something like somewhat convincing.
It was something kind of convincing. Yeah, Edmonton really dropped the ball in that game. And then Calgary.
Maybe they didn't. I'm looking at the schedule here from last year.
I don't remember. Like I feel like Edmonton always just crushes them. Like that's just the way.
Okay, never mind. That was year 2. I think, when they're actually good. I don't know. I'm still going win here though.
All right.
Why not?
Last game on the road trip, last road game of the month of March, 25th in Calgary. Again, I feel like the games in Calgary will be close, but I think the Kraken find a way to win this one.
Yeah, I think so. Calgary, get post-deadline, like who knows what they'll have sold off. It probably won't be a good-looking Calgary team.
Yeah. These next 3 games are pretty brutal to finish out the month of March. 27th, the Oilers come to town. I've already said I don't think the Kraken beat the Oilers, so that's an L for me.
Yeah, I'm not picking 2 wins against Edmonton in the same season.
And then you get back-to-back games on the 29th and 31st with the Dallas Stars.
Dallas will be in playoff mode.
They're going to have
the
added at the deadline. I think they drop both too, yeah.
In regulation, both of them?
Yep. Even with the days off. I think the days of us splitting 1-1 with Dallas are a little behind us. Now, interesting, at the end of March, RJ, I have the Kraken at 34, 34, and 7.
Okay, I have 33, 35, and 8 again with the extra game count there. Man, where did I screw up earlier there? I hate this, yeah. But I have 33, 35, and 8. So we're again like pretty much one game apart almost.
Yeah.
And we're sticking around that 500 mark, aren't we?
Yeah, we really are. Last month here, April. Let's see if we do it. Ton of road games this month in April here. First one on April 2nd in Vancouver. I don't feel great about that game.
I feel a little better about it. I don't know. One, I think I might try and go. I've been meaning to go to a Vancouver road game, and this is the only one all season that kind of makes sense. I think the Canucks are going to be in a playoff spot, and they're going to be getting ready for the playoffs. Everyone's going to have their mind on that, and there's going to be some kind of dramatic thing about how they're playing. They're going to like have dropped games to some bad teams or something. I'm trying to look up Vancouver's schedule. There's going to be a lot of drama going on around how they're playing. And like, are they playing well enough? Are they not? And I think this is just going to add to all that talk and just create some drama. Like, how'd you lose to Seattle, this 500 team? I don't know. Just feeling the drama there.
All right. I'd take it. I just don't know that it'll happen. Saturday, April 5th in San Jose. We know the Kraken struggle in San Jose, but like San Jose's not going to be playing for anything at that point. I think the Kraken get a W.
Yep, agreed. Post deadline, there's not going to be much there, and I'll go with a Philip Grubauer shutout. We haven't talked enough about the goaltending, but I think Grubauer's going to get a shutout there.
I like that. Come back-to-back road games on the 7th and 8th. Stop one is in Los Angeles at Crypto. I think the Kings get revenge for the Kraken coming in that matinee game earlier in the season. I think the Kings take this one in regulation.
Okay, I think the Kraken win this one. They keep it rolling on the road trip. For some reason now I feel like more specific predictions as we get toward the end of the season. I feel like I haven't made enough. Shane Wright, first career hat trick.
Ooh,
in LA.
That'd be fantastic. I'll have to travel for that game. I could be there. Very next night in Utah. I've been waiting to mark this as an OTL the entire schedule. They're dropping this game in overtime. It's mullet vibes all over again.
Okay. I think they keep it rolling. I think the Kraken here toward the end of the season, the pressure's off. There won't be a whole lot to play for. They won't be properly in the playoff race, but maybe not quite eliminated yet. And so, yeah, I think they'll take the win here and try and get above 500 or at least somewhat in the conversation.
April 10th in Vegas. How do you feel? Because like Vegas they might have their foot off the gas a little bit. It could depend on the injury situation in Vegas. I don't know.
I think the Kraken will be playing well, but just looking at the Kraken's games against Vegas toward the end of the season as we near the playoffs, I don't think the Kraken have a single win in that situation. They've played Vegas a good amount.
Yeah.
They'll make it close. I'll go OTL.
Okay. I think the Kraken just
be kind of like the death knell. I mean, they'll probably be a little bit further from the playoff situation anyway, but that'll erase. I'll say that might even eliminate them.
Yeah, I'm counting it as a regulation loss for the Kraken in that one. And then last 2 games of the season, both at home, almost bookending the season perfectly by hosting the St. Louis Blues, RJ, on April 12th. How do you feel about that one?
This might be a matchup of like 84-point teams, toward the end of the season. And I think being at home, the Kraken will have a little bit more to play for. And so I'll give them the win here.
I like this one because I feel like I like the Kraken in this one. I feel like Jordan Binnington's going to be tired. He'll be used a lot this upcoming season. And so if he's playing, he'll be tired. I like the Kraken in that game against St. Louis. And then last game of the season, fan appreciation night, or at least it should be, hosting the Los Angeles Kings, RJ, April 15th. I think the Kraken win this one just because they're going to bookend the season with home wins.
Okay, I like that. And you look at last year, too. fan appreciation night, the 3-1 loss to San Jose, and how disappointing that was,
Yeah, they're
the
not doing
result. No, they're not dropping 2 fan appreciation nights in a row. I think, yeah, this one's a win, and a convincing one.
Yep. All right. So there, we have done it. Some of us maybe a little bit better than others as far as tabulating the wins and losses. It's not important.
Yeah. Hey, what if they play 83 games still, and they could maybe?
If there was a league to just throw in an extra game just to meet a number, it would be the NHL. This is ridiculous. I did not plan this, even though I thought they were going to be a 500-ish team. 37, 37, and 8.
Of course you do. All right. So you have them at exactly 500. That's 82 points. That's some pretty simple math there.
Yep.
I apologize, everybody, for having this extra game. I can't believe I let this happen. And so early on, too. Sorry, everybody. 39, 35, and 9 on an 83 game schedule.
Okay. I was going to say, that's more. 37, 37, and 8 is more than 82 points, right?
Huh?
No, it's not. Never mind.
No, that's exactly.
Yeah,
if you have 82
points,
games, that is 82 points. That's what 500. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, so you have them at what?
87 points.
Okay.
In 83 games, so give or take a point here, but basically 87 points. I have them a little bit over 500.
Yeah, I wanted them. I think they're going to end up being a little bit better than my record. Like, I think some of those games that I was just kind of writing off as a loss, like I have them dropping every single game against Edmonton, every single game against Colorado. Like, some of those games, I think the Kraken can win. You know, Tampa isn't quite as good as before. Maybe they pick up one of those 2 games. I had both of those as losses. I shy away from the OTL loss, so maybe some of these games go to overtime and they lose in overtime that I had them as regulation losses, because I really do think that the team's going to be better than last year, RJ. And like, I know I have them winning more games, but really I only have them picking up 1 point over last year's squad. But I feel like this year's team is better. It's a little deeper, still lacks on the high end, but I feel like goaltending's going to be better. You've got the depth on defense now with Montour there. I think that's going to make a big difference in keeping games close. And then I also feel like just the depth up front. I mean, we've been talking, like, Yanni Gourde might be your 4th line center. Like, you're winning those matchups. So I feel like the Kraken should be a little bit better than 500, even though we kind of rounded out right around there.
Right. And I think a lot has to go wrong, I feel like, for the team to end up where they did last year. I mean, you look at what they did last year, and yes, they had their big win streaks, but also, like, so many things, especially toward the end of last season. Like, they were not playing well. So you have to think that it'll come out at least a little bit better this season. That's why I tried to include at least one long win streak, because I don't know what your longest winning and losing streaks were, but I don't think you had them at any kind of large streaks either way. And so I tried to incorporate something where at some point, I think I had it like early January, where they would get hot and then, cool off a little bit. But because I think we're going to see something like that. And it might even be to start the season where they're really hot, or where it just takes a while for them to gel and they're really cold. I don't know. But I think we're going to see something streakier than maybe even both of us predicted.
Yeah. I don't know that the team can be a 90-point team, but I think in the upper 80s is realistically where they'll end up standings points wise. And that'll be good enough to keep them in the playoff hunt into March. And I think that's just, what we all kind of want. And I think that would be a good season for them. Will it be enough to save Ron Francis's job? I don't know. It's going to come down to how certain things play out. Maybe how well guys like Chandler Stevenson do. But I do feel like this team is going to be better than last year. Like I said, you just have depth. You've got 2 solid goaltenders. I feel like this team is just markedly better than last year. And I believe in the coaching staff a little bit more too. And I feel like that's not something to be taken lightly. Special teams should improve. That'll swing some of these matchups in their favor that historically they've lost. Having Chandler Stevenson win faceoffs should swing at least a game or 2. Just on him winning faceoffs alone should swing a game or 2 over the course of the season, I feel like. So I feel like, I know I have them, winning in regulation 3 more games than last season, but I feel like in reality it'll be more.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. I mean, it's just what takeaways also, I have a question for you. What takeaways do you get from, because we hadn't looked at the schedule before.
Right.
Really. We knew the opening game and the opening road trip, but really we hadn't looked at this schedule. Mm-hmm. After looking at it now and going game by game, what takeaways do you have about the schedule for this coming season?
That if the Kraken can hang around and be 500 and maybe Ron brings in an addition, they could really go on a run the second half of the year. I feel like there's room for them to go on a run the second half of the season. I feel like the second half of the schedule is not as bad as the first half, right? Like you've got some pretty brutal road trips early in the season. I feel like you've got a lot of hosting of the better Eastern Conference teams built in earlier into the schedule. It felt like the second half of the season, January, February, there was a lot more room for the Kraken to do some work if they can make an addition maybe. Or if guys like Shane Wright just start figuring it out in his first full season and maybe there's not as much of a rookie wall, something like that. I feel like there's room for the Kraken in the second half of the year to maybe put on a push if they can.
I think that's a good observation. It certainly seemed a lot tougher at the start, just given the matchups wise and what the schedule was, to go on a run. I also think just there seemed to be some momentum stopping games. I think there's a reason that you didn't have, because I made a point to try and build in at least one long win streak, because I feel like that just happens over the course of a season. But if you look at who the opponents are and the situations that they're in the back-to-backs, it just feels like there's a few roadblocks here before you can really get a streak of, and maybe it's where you win like 8 out of 10 and you're feeling good, but to actually get a long win streak like last year, I don't think we're going to see a 9-game win streak or a couple 8-game losing streaks like we did last year. There's just too many opponents in there that where you're not getting a bunch of them in a row that are bad or that are good. So I just think it's going to be interesting from a momentum standpoint how they're able to do given the way the schedule shakes out opponent wise.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. I feel like it's just going to be a fun season, though, regardless. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're going to be in just about each and every game. You're going to walk into the arena feeling like the Kraken can get this done. They have the depth. The path to victory is there. You're going to feel good about the coach. You're going to feel good about the players on the team. And I feel like that's something that we were missing. Certainly the back half of last year was just that kind of feeling like anything is possible, the way most hockey games should feel. Right? Like hockey is the sport where most you should feel like you've got on the outside like a 45% chance of winning the game just because it bounces. And it felt like we lost that a little bit towards the tail end of last year. Everybody, it just felt like across the board, kind of resigned to their fate. I feel like this year we're not going to have that. There's going to be a lot of optimism early in the season, even when the schedule is a little tougher, just because of what Dan and the new coaching staff is going to bring, the new additions to the team. Having Shane Wright around is just going to be exciting and fun, and watching him do his thing and figure things out over a first full season. I feel like this, even if it's not going to be a playoff year, which I still feel like too many things would have to go right for it to be a playoff year for them, I still feel like it's going to be a good season to watch and follow the Kraken on a game-by-game basis. And I think it's going to be one that at the end of the year, even if they miss the playoffs, we're going to be able to look and see some foundational pieces coming together that'll give us more optimism for the future, rather than last season where at the end we looked back and we were just like, what's the identity of this team? Where do they even go from here? How does any of this work? I feel like we're going to have better answers to that kind of stuff to look forward to in the future at the end of this season.
Yeah, well said. And I think that's a good for this theme of this week, really, where a lot of this is vibes based. Like, look, we can't predict game to game how the schedule's going to go. I mean, we can try. We're doing that right now.
RJ.
We just did, exactly. But it's very difficult to accurately do that, and so there's only so much you can guess. And so I think it's good to get kind of an overview of just kind of where we feel the vibes are at, because we don't usually do that on a weekly. This is the deep dive. We tend to be kind of more analytical, and we'll talk about the specifics of things. But I think it's good to kind of just take a step back like we do each year in this episode and just kind of talk about the vibes and how we're feeling for next season.
Yep, definitely. And I think that's also a good place to go ahead and end this episode of the deep dive. Want to thank everybody for listening. Let us know your predictions in the comments if you're listening on YouTube, or you can hit us up on social media. One more big thanks to Queen Anne Beer Hall for sponsoring the podcast. As always, again, you can check out all 82 of these games you can watch from Queen Anne Beer Hall if you wanted to. They should probably put together some sort of like fun package if you do that. I feel like that would be interesting for a place like that to do. And if you are a Patreon member, you can join me tonight tonight, if you're listening to this right away, for my coaching live stream. If not, you could always check it out on the video on demand. The same link will just take you to the recorded version of the live stream. You could join us and check out everything that I have to say there. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons.
Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.